Good morning, Democrats. Oh, thank you. That felt good. I am very excited to introduce our speaker this morning. Michelle Shara is an activist. She's out of Greenville. She got up early this morning to drive down here to speak with all of you. She has some ties in Greenwood also. She's going to talk about that a little bit. But she is an activist, she's an advocate, and most recently her work has been really focused on government overreach. She is a plaintiff in a lawsuit that is going on right now that was announced last week against Department of Homeland Security, ICE, for retaliating against people who were exercising their First Amendment rights. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Michelle up to the podium.
All right. Hi, everybody. Good morning. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Jacqueline Michelle Shara Ivy, which until last week was a thing about 5 people knew. I go by Michelle Shara. I've always gone by Michelle Shara, but I put my legal name out there as part of this lawsuit because it is that important to me. I'm an activist with 5051, Indivisible, and more organizations than I can usually remember when somebody asks. I'm here to talk about my lawsuit, but I do want to start at the beginning. People usually assume there was some big dramatic moment that got me into activism. I read a book, I watched some historic speech, had an aha moment, but my origin story actually starts on my couch, drinking a beer with my foster dog and watching RuPaul's Drag Race. So I had a thought that was somebody should put all of these things together. And then I had another thought, and I was like, well, I'm somebody. So then the final thought is that I'm somebody, I'll do it. So that actually became a repeating theme in my life, but that's how Queens to the Rescue was born. We organized charity drag shows all over North and South Carolina to raise money for animal rescue organizations, including right here in Greenwood. And actually, one of my favorite stories comes out of Greenwood. We had a sold-out show. We had 100 tickets sold. Every penny from these shows went to the Humane Society of Greenwood. But it was a sold-out show, and then the venue owner started getting some threats because it was a drag show. Some influential community members told him that they would shut his venue down if he continued. So he canceled us. He couldn't risk it, and I understood. So these influential people probably thought that that would be the end of it, but they never met me. So I immediately got another venue that was twice as big, and we sold that one out too. We had over 200 people attend this event, and we raised thousands of dollars for the Humane Society of Greenwood and Abbeville County. It's then that I learned that sometimes the best response to hate is to refuse to stop doing good. Queens to the Rescue became my passion for years. That's where I poured my energy. And then COVID happened. So an event-based organization, we shut down. When things started getting back to normal after COVID, I thought that I would bring Queens to the Rescue back. I wanted my project back. We had one successful show here in Greenwood at the Inn on the Square. And I really had planned on bringing this organization back, but life had other plans. I spent the next 2 years with some serious health issues. I had to get through that. I didn't have the energy. But finally, in January of 2025, I got my first normal blood work in years. At that point, I had a trip booked to go to Australia, but my plan was go to Australia, take my vacation, come back, start up Queens to the Rescue. Well, my trip to Australia was the first 2 weeks of February in 2025. And what happened during that time? The Trump administration took office. So when I got home, I got to learn about the whole first 2 weeks of the administration in one day. I learned about DOGE trashing essential services that protect the environment, social security, or social services, education, foreign aid, RFK's attacks on healthcare and science and education, Donald Trump trying to take over Greenland for some reason. I hadn't even unpacked my bags when I had that same familiar thought that I'd had years earlier sitting on my couch. Somebody should do something. So the very next day, February 17th, I found a protest led by 5051. I showed up and started asking how I could help. Apparently, I don't really know how to do anything halfway. Most people dip their toes into activism. Turns out I cannonball. So within weeks, I was helping organize protests, learning from those who have been fighting the fight for the immigrant community, for the homeless, for people of color, for women, for LGBTQ communities, for the environment, for labor. All of these people taught me so many amazing things. I learned how to build coalitions, coordinate mutual aid, train volunteers. And one of the most important things I learned is that activism isn't really about protesting, it's about people. It's about people bringing water, people making signs, people cleaning up, people de-escalating, people checking on the hungry and the thirsty in 100-degree heat, people volunteering to protect women's rights, to find programs for those suffering from addiction, people willing to listen to the unhoused, people who care about people. It's about community. And same thing Queens to the Rescue was about, just in a different form. Then came the moment that upped the game when I just thought nothing could really get any crazier. ICE began expanding its invasion into American cities, and it was an invasion, and it still is an invasion. When I heard they were mobilizing in Charlotte, my first thought was not particularly eloquent. It was, oh, hell no. So some friends scouted the area. We discovered ICE was staging out of the Customs and Border Protection facility in Charlotte, which is it was just in a kind of a little strip mall. It wasn't a big to-do, just a small building, but we learned that that's where they were starting. The next morning, another activist and I drove up there, and our goal was straightforward. We were going to live stream where they were deploying from and where they were going to. That way, our immigrant communities knew where they were headed instead of where they already were. We parked between a couple of buildings. As I said, it was kind of a strip mall, next to a guy in a work truck eating his lunch, and we started recording. And that was it. We weren't interfering. We weren't blocking anybody. We weren't even interacting with them in any way. We were just sitting in our car recording, documenting masked men who were preparing for operations against our neighbors on American soil. About an hour into sitting there in the car recording them, several additional ICE vehicles pulled in fast. At least 6 masked men surrounded my vehicle. It could have been more. It's hard to tell when you're terrified. One of them told me that I was on private property and told me to move my car to the street. I told him, okay, I'll move. I didn't know this was private property. There's other people right behind you right now, but they're not recording, so I guess they're not getting targeted. I was happy to move, didn't have any issues. He said he needed a picture of my license plate. Then he took a picture directly in my face with his phone, went around to the back of the car. When he came back, he said he needed my ID. I said I didn't think I need to show my ID. I was leaving the property. There's not an issue. There's no reason to identify me. He said, I'm not asking you nicely now. I'm telling you, you are being detained until you provide your identification. So then I was like, okay, you can have it. He took a picture of my ID with his phone. He passed it to his buddy, who took a picture of my ID with his phone. None of them would identify themselves to me. And after a little bit, they agreed to release us and agreed that we could be out on the street recording. Now, for the average person, that probably would have scared them away. But again, they never met me. I stayed for 2 days in the street recording, documenting where they were, what vehicles they were in, providing that information to social media, to rapid response groups, trying to do the best that we could to protect the people these men were attacking and kidnapping in the streets. 10 days later, I got an email that my global entry, which is basically TSA pre-check for customs for international travel, it's just getting back in the country a little bit faster. 10 days later, I got an email that my global entry got revoked. No explanation, just gone. It's interesting to note that that's one of the only programs managed explicitly by Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. So there was no doubt at that point in time why it was revoked to me, even though they would not provide me with any information. So as scary as it was to know that my own government came after me, my primary thought was like, I can't really complain that my customs fast pass got revoked. There's people who are getting kidnapped in the street. There were and still are families in hiding. There were and still are people terrified to leave their homes. There's children being separated from their parents, or worse, over 500 children and babies have been detained by this administration. Compared to that, I'm not going to complain about my global entry being revoked. It was just small and petty. So I didn't do anything outside of maybe a social media post. I didn't even really say anything to anybody. But 2 months later, I read about another woman named Nicole Cleland from Minnesota. The same thing happened to her, but worse in a way. She was legally observing, recording on a street at a safe distance, and an agent pulled up. He knew her name before she even said a word. He told her he had facial recognition and that his body cam was recording. 3 days later, her global entry was revoked. So, like a creep, I looked her up on social media, and I reached out, and I said, hey, this happened to me too. And she shared the same reservations about complaining about our global entry when bigger things are happening. But she made me realize something very important. If we only fight back when the government does the very worst thing imaginable, we've already surrendered every smaller right along the way. Rights disappear one compromise at a time. She connected me with attorneys at Democracy Forward. And eventually, I became one of the plaintiffs in a federal lawsuit challenging what we believe is an unlawful surveillance program operated by the Department of Homeland Security. This lawsuit is not about global entry. Global entry was just the receipt that proved that something that had happened. Our complaint is that DHS created and maintained records on Americans whose only offense was peacefully observing and recording government agents. According to the complaint, observers like me were photographed, our license plates documented, our identities collected, and that information was maintained in government systems and later used to retaliate against us. To be clear, I was not arrested. I was not charged with a crime. I was not interfering with anyone. I was not impeding any operations. And that makes the collection of my data a direct violation of the Privacy Act. I was exercising my rights as guaranteed by the Constitution. So what we're asking the court to do is very simple. We're not asking for money. This isn't about getting paid. We're asking the court to declare that the federal government cannot secretly build databases of Americans simply because they're peacefully exercising their First Amendment rights. We're asking the court to order DHS to stop collecting this information, delete the records they've already gathered, including photographs, and prohibit the government from using that information to punish other people who just don't agree with them. Our case is about much more than just the few plaintiffs whose names appear on the complaint. Because if the government can create a dossier on citizens for peacefully watching government officials in public, where does that end? That's why I put my legal name on this lawsuit. It's not because I'm fearless. It's because constitutional rights only survive when ordinary people are willing to defend them. People often ask if I'm nervous about being surveyed and monitored and continuing to speak loudly against them. Of course I'm scared. I'm scared right now. It's all scary, but it's never been about being scared. Nobody enjoys suing the government, especially not when they've already retaliated against you for much less. It's been about community. If one of us does not have rights, none of us have rights. And this doesn't just apply to our side of the aisle. Whatever issue you care about, your rights are only as secure as the person you disagree with. So let's talk about the First Amendment for a second, because I think we've gotten lazy about what that means. It's not just freedom of speech in the abstract. It's not just freedom to post on social media or whatever lowbrow equivocation we've accepted. It's the right to stand on a public bridge holding a sign and not get bullied by police because Malden city officials didn't like our message. It's the right to point a camera at agents of your own government while they operate in your community and have that be legal because it is legal. It's the right to walk into a council chamber, sign up for 3 minutes of public comment, and tell the people who work for you that you don't like what they're doing with your tax dollars. It's the right to organize, assemble, to petition your government for a redress of grievances, and all that's just a fancy way of saying to complain loudly in public until somebody listens. I've had officials try to tell us our message was not the right one. I've had Greenville City try to tell me how loud I was allowed to be while exercising a constitutional right. I've had men with guns and no name tags tell me I couldn't record them on a public street in broad daylight. Every single time my answer was the same. Nope. No, you don't get to shrink down my rights to a size that's convenient for you, because rights are not privileges the government hands out for good behavior. They exist whether they fit the agenda of the people in power or not. When a city tries to regulate protest signs off a public right-of-way, federal agency tries to intimidate people out of documenting them, that is not law and order. That is an attempt to make the exercise of a constitutional right so much of a hassle that you give up and go home. But don't go home. Show up, stand on the sidewalk, hold the sign, sign up for public comment, keep the camera rolling, because a right that you are too afraid to use is not even really a right anymore. When I look back over the last several years, I realize my life has been shaped by that one simple sentence. Somebody should do something. Every important chapter started there. Animal rescue, Queens of the Rescue, community organizing, mutual aid protests, and now this federal lawsuit. I jumped at the chance to stand up to the Trump administration because we can't keep waiting for somebody else to do something. We need to get people in office, and we need the people in office to represent us. We can't keep calculating the most electable representatives. That methodology isn't how we ended up where we are now. We need people like Rock getting in office, people we know. We need regular people standing up and doing something. So I want to leave everybody with one challenge today. The next time you find yourself saying somebody should do something, I'd like you to do it.
Anybody have any questions for her? That's all right. You did great.
Yeah, get back up there.
My bad. Anybody have any questions?
Where's our camera lady? I'll start with the first question. Well, take your time. Am I centered? Okay, is this my good side? All right, very quick question. I don't know much about the legal process when you file a lawsuit, et cetera. So two questions. Who did you get to be your legal representation? And is it costing you a ton to do so? And then second, how long does this process take before you hear back on a decision?
Okay, so we are represented by Democracy Forward, which is an organization like the ACLU. I've got a team of about 5 lawyers. I did not seek them out. They sought me out. They basically said, hey, you're on a list. Do you want to sue the government? I was like, yeah, I do. So Bradley Gerard is my main lawyer, the one I've talked to the most. It is costing me nothing to do this. They're doing it completely free. The only fees, if the judge gives us court costs, then Democracy Forward will keep that. Otherwise, there's no cost to me. I can drop out at any time with nothing. That's the glory of these organizations that fight for our rights. And as Rock said earlier, they're actually pretty conservative because they're keeping the government out of your life. I can't believe it's an issue that we have to fight. But right now, we just filed last week. We've got 60 days once the defendants are served. So that's Mark Wayne Mullen, DHS, Customs and Border Protection, Customs and Border Patrol, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, and I think one other head of one of those organizations. So once they're all served, we've got 60 days for them to respond, which will probably be a motion to dismiss because that's how it goes. And that's as far as I've gotten. I don't know anything about the legal process either, but it's probably going to be a couple years before we know anything substantial.
So you are very firm and are able to stand up for yourself. And as white women, we have some privilege that others don't have. Mm-hmm. What are some, because I think we really need to be aware of folks who can't be out. Yes. So what's some like low-hanging fruit activism people can engage in where they're able to kind of be safe as they're doing it, and by safe meaning not being out in public?
Absolutely, and that's a big important thing. And that's another reason I recorded ICE. I am a white woman, and I have that privilege to do that. Even if I had gotten detained, I know I would have gotten out. So that's why I made sure I had to put myself out there. But there are tons of ways to get involved and help the community without being on the street, without being loud, without potentially endangering yourself. So there's mutual aid organizations. I'm not 100% sure what you have here in Greenwood, but we have things like Triune Mercy Center, who helps the unhoused community. We have Harvest Hope food banks. And, a big one, guys, is like grow food. Just plant a garden, donate food. People need food. I mean, like I mentioned, our immigrant communities, a lot of them are essentially hiding, especially when they see ICE activity like we're seeing lately on 85. They don't have food, and there are groups and organizations that donate that. So if you plant a garden, if you have a garden, please donate some of that. If you don't have a garden, throw some seeds in the dirt, see what happens. It's a great way to get involved.
My question is for Bill. Can you put her speech on our Facebook page? Good.
This is your second question, sir.
All right, so we're now vested in your story. All right, we're now a part of it. How do we follow the updates and keep in touch and see what's going on?
I will say this with a disclaimer. You are more than welcome to follow me on Facebook. There is some foul language. There will continue to be foul language. I'm sorry. It will happen again. But yeah, Michelle Shara on Facebook. I've got a lot of, you can just follow me. You don't have to friend me. But yeah, I'm open to it. You know, I do vet people on my personal Facebook, but that's where I'll be doing most of it. Or you can follow 5051. I know Cynthia can help you out with leading you there into our page and groups, and we'll try to share it there to spare everybody my rants. Anybody else? Yes? No.
Hello. How many? My question is to everybody here. How many of you have been a part of a protest? Raise your hand. It's time again, guys. Don't worry. If we have to sit in a cell, I'll be there with you.
And I just want to say I'm so proud of Greenwood. I know that it's difficult to do things like protest here, and you guys have like crushed it. Cynthia specifically, just making it happen out here. So I'm very proud of Greenwood for that. Oh,
Uh-oh.
Michelle, right? That's
that's
Are
me.
you gonna run for office?
I'm not planning on it, but I might. All right, is that it? All good? I can sit down. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you for having me.